She said she wanted to help me move on, but she deleted the last recording of my late daughter's voice, the only sound that still kept me breathing. My name's Evan Miller, 35, from Portland, Oregon. 3 years ago, my daughter Sophie died of leukemia. Since then, I've been surviving, not living. The days all blurred into gray routines. Work, sleep, avoidance. The only color left in my world was a 30-second voice memo on my phone. Sophie's voice, small and bright, saying, "Daddy, I love you." I listened to it every night like prayer. Then I met Kelsey. She was all warmth at first. The kind of woman who spoke softly, held your arm when you talked, and looked at you like she saw something worth saving. She said she understood grief, that she'd lost people too. I believed her. She listened to every story about Sophie with that tilted head empathy that felt like sunlight after years of rain. But slowly her tone changed. "You talk about her a lot," she'd say. "You can't build a future if you live in the past." Her voice got firmer each time, like therapy turning into instruction. I mistook control for care. I thought she was helping me heal. Turns out, she just wanted my silence. It got worse, slowly enough that I didn't notice until it was too late. Grief makes you gullible. You mistake pity for love, tolerance for kindness. At first, Kelsey's small criticisms sounded reasonable, even loving. "You should try deleting some photos," she said once. "It's not healthy to stare at her face every day." When I hesitated, she smiled gently and added, "For Sophie's sake, you need to live again." That line, "for Sophie's sake," became her favorite weapon. The first Real crack appeared at a friend's barbecue last spring. Someone noticed the silver necklace I always wear, the one engraved with my daughter's name and birth date. It wasn't fancy, just a small pendant I touched whenever I felt anxious. "That's beautiful," the host's wife said. "Is it your daughter's?" Before I could answer, Kelsey laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, that? He's basically married to his dead kid." The world went silent. I felt the weight of 10 people's stares, the awkward shuffle of someone pretending to refill a drink. I didn't speak, didn't defend myself, just put my plate down and walked out to my truck. She followed me home hours later, crying, mascara streaked. "It was a joke," she said. "I was just trying to lighten the mood. Everyone's always so tense when you talk about her." She collapsed onto my chest like the victim, whispering how bad she felt. I forgave her because anger felt heavier than compassion, and I was tired of carrying heavy things. That was my mistake, my first big one. A month later, she moved in. She said it would help us grow together, and I convinced myself that maybe it would, that maybe love could outvote the ache. She promised to split bills, groceries, utilities, but her wallet always had stories. Car repairs, dental stuff, a late paycheck. I paid them all, told myself it wasn't a big deal. She'd pay me back when things settled. They never did. She redecorated my house, said the beige walls made her depressed. I came home to teal curtains, gold pillows, and a rug that smelled like perfume in debt. "It feels more alive now, doesn't it?" she asked. I nodded because I didn't want another argument. She started throwing away things she called triggers. Sophie's old slippers, her drawings taped to the fridge, the stuffed giraffe she slept with. One day, I found the giraffe missing and panicked. Kelsey sighed like I was a child. "Evan, it was moldy. You can't live in a museum of pain." I searched the trash that night, rain pouring down until I found it. Soaked, crushed, still faintly smelling of my daughter's shampoo. I washed it, dried it, hid it in a box under my bed. The next morning, Kelsey acted like nothing happened. Lonely people believe lies that sound like hope. That's what I told myself each time she broke another small piece of me. She started managing my calendar. "So you don't overthink." Deleted reminders for Sophie's birthday. Canceled my volunteer shift at the children's hospital. "You need to stop surrounding yourself with sadness," she said, while scrolling through her phone. Her tone hardened whenever I resisted. "Do you want to be happy or not?" she'd ask, as if my grief were a choice I kept making to spite her. I began apologizing for everything. For being quiet, for missing my daughter, for existing with scars. and every time I did, she looked triumphant. One night, I caught her using my laptop. She said she was ordering groceries, but later I found she'd been messaging one of my coworkers, the same coworker who'd once offered condolences at Sophie's memorial. The messages weren't flirty, exactly, but they were intimate. She'd told him, "He's still broken. I'm trying to fix him, but he won't let me." Fix me. Like I was a leaky pipe or a project gone wrong. That phrase stayed in my head for weeks. It echoed louder than Sophie's voice memo, louder than my own thoughts. By the time summer came, I was barely speaking to anyone else. Kelsey had quietly reshaped my world, cut off my friends, softened my anger, rewired my guilt. And I let her, because a man who's already lost everything doesn't fight too hard to keep what little is left. I told myself she'd come around, that her sharp edges were just fear, that maybe, in her own twisted way, she loved me. But deep down, I knew. She didn't want to share my pain. She wanted to own it. It happened on a Wednesday, one of those mornings where the world feels fragile before coffee. I woke to the sound of soft tapping. Kelsey was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through my phone like it belonged to her. Her hair was messy, her robe loose, and she smiled when she saw me open my eyes. "Morning," she said, casual. "Just checking your screen time. You've been on that grief forum again." I sat up slowly. "You went through my phone? Don't be dramatic. You don't need to hide things from me." That phrase, "don't be dramatic," had become her shield for every invasion, every violation. I brushed it off. I'd learned that confronting her before coffee only ended in gaslighting and tears. She'd twist everything into how hard it was to love a man, so consumed by ghosts. That night, after she fell asleep, I plugged in my headphones and opened my music app, ready for Sophie's voice. My nightly ritual. One tap, one whisper of her laughter. The little giggle before she said it. "Daddy, I love you." But the folder was empty. I froze. My heartbeat stuttered, hands shaking as I searched every file, every backup, every folder. Gone. Not in the recently deleted folder. Not in the cloud. Gone like she never existed. I ran to the kitchen where Kelsey was sipping tea and scrolling her phone. "Where is it?" She looked up, annoyed. "Where is what?" "The recording. Sophie's voice memo. It's gone." Her expression didn't change. "Oh, that. I deleted it." My ears rang. "You what?" "You need to move on, Evan," she said, calm as someone reading weather reports. "It's not healthy. You listen to it every night like some ritual. It's keeping you stuck." I stared at her, unable to breathe. That was the last thing I had of her. "And you still have the memories." She stood, crossing her arms. "You can't build a life with me if you're living with a ghost." My body went cold, the kind of cold that doesn't start in the skin but in the spine. "Get out," I said quietly. She blinked, surprised. "What?" "Pack your things. Get out of my house." Her calm cracked. "Evan, don't do this. I'm helping you. Get out." Her voice rose to a shriek. "You're insane. You think this is love? You're a broken man living in a grave." She grabbed a mug off the counter and hurled it across the room. It exploded against the wall, shards skittering across the tile. I didn't yell back, didn't move. I just picked up my phone and started dialing 911. That did it. Her face twisted, then fell. She muttered something, maybe an apology, maybe another insult, and stormed out the door. I heard her car start, tires screeching against the wet pavement. When the silence settled, I sank to the floor. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold the phone. It took hours to think clearly enough to check my backups. The recording wasn't in iCloud, but months ago, I'd made a manual backup on my laptop, just in case. I plugged it in, found the folder, and there it was. Sophie _Vinyl M4A. I pressed play. Her voice filled the room, small and pure through the speakers. "Daddy, I love you." I broke. Completely. The kind of crying that folds you in half and leaves you gasping. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the kitchen floor until sunrise, listening on repeat, like a man trying to memorize light. But under the grief, something else started to stir. A cold clarity. Kelsey hadn't just deleted a file. She'd erased the only proof I had that my daughter's voice ever filled this house. That was control at its purest. Not anger, not even cruelty. Power. She wanted to rewrite my past, to make herself the only thing left in my world. And people like that don't just disappear quietly. The next morning, her car was gone, but her perfume lingered, sweet, synthetic, suffocating. On the table sat a note in her looping handwriting. "You'll thank me one day. Love doesn't mean clinging to ghosts." I tore it in half. I went to work like nothing happened. Smiled at coworkers, answered emails, made small talk. But inside I was waiting. I knew her silence wasn't peace. It was preparation. Because women like Kelsey never leave cleanly. They come back when they realize control has slipped through their fingers. And when they do, they don't knock. It didn't take long for her silence to find a new voice. Mine, borrowed and twisted. 3 days after she left, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a woman's voice erupted on the other end. Shrill, furious. "You kicked her out at midnight? What the hell is wrong with you? Who is this?" "It's Amber," she snapped. "Kelsey's best friend. She told me everything. You threw her into the street like garbage after everything she did to help you heal. You're sick, Evan." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how quickly she'd rewritten the story. "Amber. She deleted my daughter's voice recording. Because you're obsessed with it. You don't need help, you need therapy. She was trying to save you." Click. I hung up before she could keep reciting whatever script Kelsey had fed her. My hands shook as I set the phone down. By that evening, I understood what was happening. Kelsey went nuclear. First, it was a post on Facebook. A photo of her smiling sadly with a caption that read, "Sometimes love means walking away from someone who refuses to heal. Please, if you're in a relationship with grief, know that you deserve peace too." Then came the comments, dozens of them. Friends, acquaintances, even people I didn't know. "You did the right thing, girl. Emotional abuse is still abuse. You can't pour from an empty cup." Then, an Instagram story, a black screen with white text. "When someone weaponizes their dead child to control you, run." I stared at it, the words punching holes through my chest. Weaponizes. My daughter's death, a weapon, in her narrative. She'd found a way to make my grief sound manipulative. Within 2 days, whispers reached my workplace. Coworkers glanced at me differently. Someone from HR asked if I was doing okay at home. My manager, Rob, called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable, like someone forced to deliver bad news at a funeral. "Evan," he began, "this is awkward. We've had some concerns raised. Nothing formal, but for now, let's pull you off the Larson account. Just until things cool down." "Concerns?" He sighed. "Look, I don't know the details and I don't want to, but there's talk about emotional instability. Optics matter, you know how clients can be." "Optics?" I nodded, numb. Lost my biggest client, the one that paid my mortgage, to rumors she'd planted. That night, I sat in the dark with the TV off, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound. For the first time since Sophie's death, I felt unsafe in my own home. Then, at 1:17 a.m., I heard scratching. Not the wind, not a raccoon. A steady, deliberate scrape near the front door. I froze, pulse hammering. When I crept closer, I saw shadows moving through the frosted glass. Whoever it was, they were trying to pick the lock. I didn't open it. I didn't shout. I just stood there, silent, listening to the faint metallic clicks until they stopped. Then came the sound of footsteps fading into the night. I called the locksmith the next morning. He replaced the deadbolt and added a reinforced strike plate. Then I went one step further. I installed 2 cameras. One above the front door, one facing the driveway. Subtle, black, nearly invisible. That night, I finally slept until the doorbell rang. It was 9:42 p.m. I checked the feed on my phone. Kelsey stood on the porch, hair wild, eyes glassy. She wasn't crying this time. She was vibrating with rage. "Evan!" she screamed. "You coward! You'll die alone with your ghosts." She pounded on the door, screaming again and again, "You ruined my life." At one point, she looked straight at the camera. Maybe she saw the faint red light, maybe she didn't care. I didn't move, didn't answer, just let her scream. Eventually, she ran out of breath and stormed off, muttering something I couldn't make out. The camera caught every second. Later, when I replayed the footage, something in me shifted. Watching her rage through that tiny screen, she looked small, like a tantruming child. Not powerful, not frightening, just exposed. I uploaded the video to a private folder labeled Insurance. Then I emailed myself a copy, timestamped, backed up, saved, because I knew this wasn't over. She'd built her identity on manipulation. And when people like that realize the story's slipping away, they'll burn the truth to keep the illusion alive. And somewhere, I suspected she was already drafting her next chapter, one where she was the survivor and I was the villain. But for once, I had something she didn't. Receipts. 3 weeks of silence. No calls, no messages, no midnight visits. For a while, I thought maybe she'd finally moved on. Maybe the court of social media had given her enough sympathy to keep her satisfied. But people like Kelsey don't disappear, they regroup. The letter arrived on a Wednesday, folded neatly inside a manila envelope from the Multnomah County Courthouse. Petition for restraining order. Filed by Kelsey Harper, alleging harassment, stalking, emotional intimidation. I remember reading the first line and actually laughing. Not out of amusement, but disbelief. The same woman who'd broken into my phone, deleted my daughter's last words, and screamed at my doorstep was now claiming I was a danger to her. I called my attorney, a quiet woman named Lee who'd handled my custody paperwork years ago. "You still have all the evidence?" she asked. "Every second," I said. "Then let's make sure the truth has a microphone this time." Court was set for a Friday morning. Kelsey showed up early, hair perfect, dressed in soft beige like she was auditioning for sainthood. Her lawyer, a smug man in an expensive suit, hovered beside her. They avoided looking at me, but I could feel her eyes flicker toward the cameras in the hallway, as if someone might capture her pain for likes later. When the hearing began, her attorney stood, voice smooth as glass. "Your Honor, my client has endured sustained psychological harassment. Mr. Miller has contacted her repeatedly, followed her, and attempted to intimidate her through online surveillance and emotional manipulation. She simply wishes to feel safe." I almost smiled. The performance was flawless. Rehearsed empathy, trembling voice, delicate phrasing. Kelsey dabbed her eyes at all the right moments. Then it was our turn. Lee stood calmly, placed a single flash drive on the table. "Your Honor," she said, "the defense would like to submit video evidence, dated and time-stamped, of Ms. Harper arriving uninvited at Mr. Miller's residence, screaming threats and attempting forced entry." The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and kind eyes, watched as the footage played. Kelsey, on my porch, face twisted, pounding on the door. "You'll die alone with your ghosts." The courtroom was silent except for the tinny echo of her own voice. Lee continued, "We also have police reports documenting attempted break-ins, digital evidence of defamatory posts, and text messages from Ms. Harper's acquaintances threatening Mr. Miller at her direction." Kelsey's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up a hand. "Let it finish." When Lee finished, the judge turned to me. "Mr. Miller, do you wish to add anything?" I shook my head. "No, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself." Then the judge looked at Kelsey. "Ms. Harper, I have one question." Kelsey straightened, voice soft and rehearsed. "Of course. Did you, at any point, delete a voice recording belonging to Mr. Miller? A recording of his deceased daughter?" The question hung in the air like a held breath. Kelsey hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Yes, but it wasn't malicious. I was helping him move on. He was fixated and..." The judge leaned forward. "Erasing the memory of a dead child isn't therapy, Ms. Harper. It's cruelty." Kelsey's face froze, not with guilt, but with calculation, as if trying to decide which emotion would play best in the moment. The judge continued, voice steady. This court finds that Mr. Miller has demonstrated credible evidence of harassment, defamation, and attempted intimidation by the petitioner. The respondent's countersuit for a restraining order is hereby granted. Her gavel struck once, the sound crisp, final. 1 year. No contact. 500 feet distance. Violation will result in arrest. Kelsey's mother gasped from the back row. You ruined her life, she shouted at me. She was trying to save you. I didn't reply, didn't even look her way, because the truth doesn't always need a defense. Sometimes silence is the only truth left standing. Kelsey left the courtroom in a storm of whispered outrage, her lawyer murmuring something about appeals. Lee packed up our things quietly. You did good, she said. I didn't do anything, I replied. I just stopped apologizing. Outside, the rain had started again. Soft, gray, almost kind. I walked to my truck, sat behind the wheel, and for the first time in months, played Sophie's recording. Daddy, I love you. It didn't hurt this time. Felt peaceful. Like her voice wasn't haunting me anymore, but guiding me back towards something resembling life. Justice didn't bring her back. It never could. But it gave her memory a kind of shield, proof that love, real love, doesn't vanish just because someone else tries to erase it. As I drove home, I realized something simple, something quiet. Kelsey had taken almost everything she could. My peace, my reputation, my sleep, but not the one thing she wanted most. My grief, that still belonged to me. It's been 11 months since the court date, since I heard the gavel hit wood and felt, for the first time in years, like the world was on my side. Life didn't go back to normal exactly. It shifted slowly into something gentler. I still work at the same firm, though I keep to myself. The whispers stopped after a while. People moved on to new gossip, new stories. Turns out reputations heal when you stop trying to defend them. Truth has a quiet endurance that outlasts noise. I kept Sophie's voice safe this time. 5 backups, 3 digital, 1 USB drive in my safe, and 1 copy in a safety deposit box. Paranoid? Maybe. But grief teaches you to guard the few pieces of heaven you still have left. I had her old drawings professionally restored, the ones Kelsey crumpled and threw away. They hang now in my hallway, each one framed behind glass. Crayon rainbows, a stick figure of us feeding ducks, a sun with a crooked smile. I even found someone who could clean and rest-stitch her stuffed bunny, the one I dug out of the trash that night. It sits on my nightstand, soft again, faintly smelling of lavender instead of mildew. Last week was Sophie's birthday. She would have been 8. I took the day off work, packed a small bag with her favorite snacks, goldfish crackers, apple slices, juice boxes, and went to the park where we used to spend Sunday mornings. The same pond, the same cracked bench, the same gentle hum of kids laughing in the distance. I sat there for a long time, watching the ducks drift toward me, waiting for food that wasn't coming. Then I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Good night, Daddy. I love you. Her voice came through tinny and clear, like sunlight through glass. A few people nearby looked over, probably wondering why a grown man was sitting alone, smiling through tears. I didn't care. For the first time in years, the ache in my chest didn't feel like a wound. Felt like a pulse, because I finally understood. Memory isn't a prison. It's proof of love. I used to think moving on meant forgetting, burying the pain so deep it couldn't touch me. But that's not healing. That's self-erasure. What I have now isn't obsession. It's connection. A bridge between the life I had and the one I still have to live. I visit that park every Sunday now. Sometimes I bring flowers. Sometimes I just sit. I started sketching again. Small things, simple things. Sophie's drawings taught me that you don't need realism to tell the truth. Sometimes a stick figure says more than a portrait ever could. I even reconnected with my sister, whom I'd pushed away after Sophie died. We don't talk about grief much, but she brings her 2 boys to the park sometimes. Watching them run where Sophie once ran feels like a small circle closing, not perfectly, but enough. Every now and then, I still get a pang. That sharp sting of absence when I hear a little girl laugh or see a pink balloon floating away. But it no longer feels like punishment. Feels like a reminder that love leaves echoes, and I get to keep mine. Kelsey never violated the order. Not once. Maybe she learned. Maybe she found a new story to star in. I don't check. I don't need to. Some ghosts are best left uninvited. A few weeks ago, I transferred Sophie's voice memo to a tiny locket. One that opens and plays the recording when I press the clasp. It's small enough to fit in my palm, quiet enough that only I can hear it. Sometimes, when the world feels heavy again, I press it and let her voice fill the silence. Good night, Daddy. I love you. It doesn't break me anymore. It anchors me, reminds me that she lived, that I loved, that it was real, that it still is. I used to think grief was a wall between us. Now I know it's a doorway, one that never fully closes and maybe isn't supposed to. People say time heals everything. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal, it teaches. Teaches you what to hold on to and what to let go. And me? I'm holding on to her voice, because it's not the sound of loss anymore. It's the sound of love surviving the silence. And no one, not grief, not cruelty, not Kelsey or the passing of years, will ever erase her again.